The golden sunrise painted the eastern sky as Lily Morgan clutched a jar of wildflower honey against her chest, her free hand firmly holding her 6-year-old son's small fingers. The dusty road to Sunflower Valley Ranch stretched before them like a ribbon of uncertainty, with nothing but rolling hills and desperate prayers between them and what might be their last chance. "Just a little further, Charlie," she whispered, adjusting his faded blue overalls as they approached the weathered wooden gate. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." The morning air carried the sweet scent of alfalfa and the distant music of songbirds as Lily paused at the entrance, her heart hammering against her ribs. 28 years old, recently widowed, with nothing but a mason jar of honey from her collapsed apiary, a child who hadn't spoken in months, and a name scribbled on a faded newspaper clipping. This was what rock bottom felt like, standing at a stranger's gate at dawn with nowhere else to turn. Charlie tugged at her sleeve, his solemn brown eyes questioning. Those eyes, so like his father's, held a wisdom no 6-year-old should possess. "We're going to be okay," Lily assured him, though uncertainty laced her words. "Mr. Garrett might remember your daddy from the war. They served together." Charlie nodded silently, his small face serious beneath his mop of unruly chestnut hair. They'd traveled 3 days to reach this place, sleeping in bus stations and surviving on peanut butter sandwiches. The bee farm Lily's husband had left them had succumbed to colony collapse disorder, leaving them with nothing but debts and a few jars of the last honey harvest. This jar, their final offering, represented everything they had left in the world. The path to the main house seemed endless, lined with ancient oak trees that cast long shadows in the early morning light. Charlie stumbled, his worn sneakers catching on a rock, and Lily steadied him, ignoring the ache in her own feet from the 5-mile walk from the bus stop. "Almost there, sweetheart," she encouraged, though her voice trembled. The white farmhouse loomed ahead, imposing against the backdrop of mountains. Smoke curled from the chimney, a sign of life that simultaneously relieved and terrified her. What if he turned them away? What if her late husband's war buddy wanted nothing to do with his widow and silent child? Halfway to the house, Charlie froze, his eyes widening as he pointed to a cluster of wooden boxes nestled at the edge of a distant field. Beehives. Dozens of them, arranged in neat rows, their surfaces gleaming in the morning light. Lily's heart leaped. Perhaps this wasn't such a desperate gamble after all. That moment of hope was shattered when Charlie suddenly bolted, racing toward the hives with unexpected speed. "Charlie, no!" Lily called, lurching after him, the jar of honey clutched tightly against her chest. But her son, silent for months, seemed possessed by a sudden urgency, his small legs pumping as he sprinted across the unfamiliar terrain. The combination of exhaustion, hunger, and sudden panic overwhelmed Lily. The world tilted sharply as her foot caught in a gopher hole, sending her sprawling face first onto the dusty ground. The precious jar of honey flew from her grasp, landing miraculously intact a few feet away, but Lily couldn't catch her breath, couldn't call out for Charlie, as darkness edged her vision. The last thing she saw before consciousness fled was a tall figure emerging from between the beehives, catching Charlie gently by the shoulders as her son reached the honey boxes. Then, merciful darkness claimed her. When Lily opened her eyes, she found herself lying on a worn leather couch, a scratchy woolen blanket pulled over her. The scent of coffee and wood smoke filled her nostrils. Disoriented, she tried to sit up, only to be gently pressed back by a large, calloused hand. "Easy now," a deep voice rumbled. "You took quite a fall out there." Lily blinked, bringing into focus the man standing over her. Tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of sage, he looked to be in his mid-30s. A day's worth of stubble darkened his jaw, and his dark hair was pushed back from his forehead, revealing a thin scar that bisected his left eyebrow. "Charlie," she gasped, struggling to rise again. "My son." "The boy's fine," the man assured her, his voice gentler than his rugged appearance suggested. "He's out on the porch with my dog. Hasn't said a word, but they seem to understand each other just fine." Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," she began. "We didn't mean to trespass. I was looking for Noah Garrett. My husband, David Morgan, served with him in Afghanistan." Something flickered in the man's eyes. Recognition, followed swiftly by a shadow of grief. "I'm Noah," he said after a moment, "and you must be Lily. Dave spoke of you often. You knew who I was?" Lily asked, surprise evident in her voice. Noah nodded, moving to pour coffee from a battered percolator on the wood stove. Dave showed us all pictures, talked about his wife, the beekeeper, and the son he'd never met. He handed her a steaming mug. I was sorry to hear about the IED. Dave was a good man. Lily accepted the coffee with trembling hands. "Thank you. It's been difficult. The understatement of the year. 18 months of struggling to keep Dave's dream alive, watching their bees die mysteriously, fighting with the bank, and finally, accepting defeat. I didn't know where else to go. Dave always said, if anything happened to him, I should find you." Noah's expression was unreadable as he studied her. "And the honey?" "The last of our harvest," Lily explained, suddenly remembering. "Where is it?" I dropped it when I fell. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "It's safe," Noah assured her, gesturing to the kitchen counter where the mason jar sat, golden and perfect in the morning light. "Your boy was making a beeline for my apiary, seemed to know exactly what they were." Lily managed a weak smile. "Charlie grew up around bees. He used to help his father with the hives before." She trailed off, unwilling to speak of the day Charlie had stopped talking, the day the telegram had arrived bearing news of Dave's death. Noah nodded as if he understood. "You both look exhausted. When's the last time you had a proper meal?" Lily couldn't remember. They'd been surviving on whatever she could afford, day-old bread, bruised apples. The occasional splurge on peanut butter when Charlie's ribs became too visible beneath his skin. Pride made her hesitate, but hunger won out. "Yesterday morning," she admitted, "we had some bread on the bus." Without another word, Noah stood and moved to the refrigerator, pulling out eggs, bacon, and a block of cheese. His movements were efficient as he began cracking eggs into a bowl. "Why did you come here, Lily? Really?" The question hung between them, unavoidable and stark. Lily wrapped her fingers around the warm mug, drawing strength from its heat. "Dave left us the apiary, but something's killing bees all over the county. Colony collapse. We lost everything." She swallowed hard. "The bank foreclosed last week. I remember Dave mentioning you had land in Colorado, that you kept bees too. I hoped. You hoped I'd taken my dead friend's family." Noah's voice wasn't unkind, but it was direct, cutting straight to the heart of her desperate gamble. "I hoped you might need help with your bees," Lily countered, finding a shred of dignity. "I'm good with them. It's what I know. And I'm willing to work for room and board until we get back on our feet." Noah was silent as he worked, the sizzle of bacon filling the kitchen. Through the window, Lily could see Charlie sitting on the porch steps, a large German shepherd sitting patiently beside him. Her son's hand rested on the dog's head, a connection that made her heart ache with both relief and sadness. "I run this place alone," Noah finally said, sliding eggs onto plates. "Have since my father passed 3 years ago. It's not much. The cattle operation barely breaks even most years. The bees are what keep this ranch afloat." Lily's heart sank. He was preparing to turn them away, laying the groundwork for rejection. She couldn't blame him. Who would want the burden of a widow and a traumatized child? "But," Noah continued, surprising her, "I could use help with the apiary. It's expanded faster than I can manage alone." Hope flickered to life in Lily's chest, fragile as a candle flame in a storm. "We wouldn't be a burden," she promised quickly. "Charlie's quiet, but he's good with animals, and I can cook and clean besides working the hives." Noah regarded her thoughtfully, then moved to the door, calling out, "Charlie, you hungry, buddy?" To Lily's astonishment, her son appeared in the doorway, the German shepherd at his heels. The boy's solemn expression had softened slightly, and he nodded in response to Noah's question, a simple gesture that felt monumental after months of withdrawn silence. "This is Ranger," Noah explained, nodding toward the dog. "He seems to have made a friend." Charlie's small hand remained resting on the dog's back, an anchor in unfamiliar territory. He moved to sit at the table when Noah gestured to a chair, his eyes widening at the plate of food set before him. "Go ahead," Noah encouraged, and Charlie needed no further invitation, diving into the meal with the hunger of a child who had gone too long without proper nourishment. Lily felt tears threatening as she watched her son eat. How had they come to this, dependent on the kindness of a stranger? Yet, there was something about Noah Garrett that inspired trust. Perhaps it was knowing he'd serve with Dave. Or maybe it was the gentle way he'd coax Charlie to the table without demanding words the boy couldn't give. "We can stay in town if the ranch isn't suitable," Lily offered, though the thought of spending their last dollars on a motel room made her stomach clench with anxiety. Noah looked up from his own plate. "The old foreman's cabin is empty. It's small, but it's weather-tight and has the basics. You could use that." He paused, his expression turning serious. "But I need to be clear about something." Lily tensed, waiting for the conditions, the catch that would make this lifeline impossible to grasp. "I don't need complications," Noah said firmly. "No bees following you here from your old place, no diseases that could infect my colonies. And no," he seemed to struggle for words, "no expectations beyond a working arrangement. Dave was my friend, and I'll help his family, but this is a business arrangement, not charity." The implication was clear. This was temporary, practical, nothing more. Lily nodded, relief and something like disappointment mingling in her chest. "Of course, strictly business." Noah studied her for a moment longer, then turned his attention to Charlie, who had demolished his breakfast and was now regarding the empty plate with lingering hunger. Without comment, Noah transferred a portion of his own bacon and eggs to the boy's plate. Charlie looked up, surprise and gratitude flickering across his small face. Still silent, he picked up his fork again. "So," Noah said, turning back to Lily, "you came at dawn with a jar of honey and a boy in overalls. You can stay, if no bees follow." A hint of humor softened his serious expression. "Deal?" Lily extended her hand across the table, aware of how chapped and work-worn it was compared to the manicured hands she'd once had in her previous life as a biology teacher. "Deal." As they shook hands, Charlie suddenly slid from his chair and moved to the counter where their jar of honey sat. He brought it to Noah, holding it out with solemn determination. "I think he wants you to have it," Lily explained, moved by her son's gesture. "It's the last jar from our apiary." Noah accepted the offering with appropriate gravity. "Thank you, Charlie. I'll put it somewhere special." He turned the jar in his hands, examining the rich amber liquid inside. "Wildflower?" Lily nodded. The bees had access to clover, sunflowers, and wild sage. Dave always said it was the best honey in 3 counties. "High praise," Noah commented, setting the jar carefully on the kitchen counter. "We'll try it later, shall we?" After breakfast, Noah led them to the foreman's cabin, a small but sturdy structure situated about 50 yards from the main house. It had clearly been uninhabited for some time, dust covering the simple furniture and cobwebs decorating the corners, but the roof was sound and the windows intact. "It's not much," Noah apologized, pushing open the door to reveal a main room with a kitchenette, a small bedroom, and a basic bathroom. "But it's yours for as long as you need it." Lily surveyed the space, seeing not the dust and neglect, but the shelter it represented. "It's perfect," she said honestly. "Thank you." Charlie had already darted inside, exploring the small bedroom with its twin beds and faded quilt. Ranger followed, apparently having appointed himself the boy's guardian. "The dog seems to have made his choice," Noah observed with a raised eyebrow. "Can't say I've ever seen Ranger take to someone so quickly." "Charlie has always had a way with animals," Lily explained, watching her son kneel to examine something under one of the beds. "They sense his gentleness, I think." Noah nodded, leaning against the doorframe. "I'll give you both today to settle in, Tomorrow, if you're up to it, I'll show you the apiary. We're heading into pollination season for the alfalfa fields, so the timing of your arrival is actually good. Lily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. They had shelter, the promise of work, and a chance to rebuild. It was more than she'd dared hope for when they'd boarded that bus 3 days ago. I don't know how to thank you, she began, but Noah shook his head. Dave saved my life in Kandahar, he said simply. Pulled me from a burning Humvee when he could have run for cover. I owe him. This, he gestured to the cabin. This is nothing. Before Lily could respond, Charlie emerged from the bedroom, holding something in his cupped hands. He approached Noah, his expression intent. What have you got there, buddy? Noah asked, crouching to the boy's level. Charlie opened his hands to reveal a small brass object. A military challenge coin, tarnished with age. Noah's breath caught visibly. Where did you find this? Charlie pointed to the bedroom, then pressed the coin into Noah's palm with deliberate care. It's my old unit's coin, Noah explained, a mixture of emotions crossing his face. I thought I'd lost it years ago. Must have fallen out of my pocket when I was fixing something in here. He closed his fingers around the coin, then looked at Charlie with newfound respect. Thank you. This means a lot to me. Charlie nodded solemnly, then returned to Ranger's side, one small hand resting on the dog's fur. I'll leave you to get settled, Noah said, straightening. There's a landline in the main house if you need to make any calls. Cell service is spotty out here. Dinner's at 6 if you'd like to join me, or you can cook here. The fridge is stocked with basics. With that, he departed, leaving Lily standing in the doorway of their temporary home, watching as he strode back toward the main house. The sunlight caught in his dark hair, illuminating strands of premature silver at his temples. Well, Charlie, she said softly, turning to her son, I think we might be okay here for a while. The boy didn't respond verbally, but his shoulders relaxed slightly as he explored their new shelter, Ranger padding faithfully behind him. Lily spent the afternoon cleaning the cabin, grateful for the distraction of physical labor. She found cleaning supplies under the sink and set to work, erasing the evidence of disuse, sweeping away dust and cobwebs, scrubbing surfaces until they gleamed. Charlie helped in his quiet way, carrying trash outside and carefully making the beds with the fresh linens Noah had provided. By late afternoon, the cabin felt almost homey. Lily had unpacked their meager belongings, a few changes of clothes, Charlie's treasured copy of Where the Wild Things Are, a framed photograph of Dave in uniform, and the bee-shaped honey dipper he'd carved for Charlie's 5th birthday. She placed the photograph on the small dresser, her fingers lingering on Dave's smiling face. We made it, she whispered to the image of her late husband. Now we just have to figure out what comes next. As the sun began its descent toward the western mountains, Lily stood on the small porch, watching Charlie and Ranger explore the perimeter of their new territory. The ranch spread before them, a patchwork of pastures, hayfields, and the distant cluster of beehives that had drawn Charlie's attention that morning. In the golden light of approaching evening, Sunflower Valley Ranch revealed its beauty, the weathered barn with its faded red paint, the windmill turning lazily in the gentle breeze, the distant shimmer of what appeared to be a small lake or large pond. It was peaceful in a way their failing apiary in California had never been, free from the shadow of foreclosure notices and pitying glances from neighbors. As darkness fell, Lily faced a decision: accept Noah's dinner invitation or remain in the sanctuary of their new space. Pride suggested the latter, but practicality and the near-empty cupboards argued for the former. Charlie, she called softly, would you like to have dinner with Mr. Garrett at the big house? Her son looked up from where he was examining a line of busy ants, his expression thoughtful. After a moment, he stood and brushed dirt from his overalls, then nodded. Ranger, apparently understanding the conversation, gave a soft woof and trotted toward the main house, looking back expectantly. I think that's a yes, Lily murmured, taking Charlie's hand. Together, they followed the dog through the gathering twilight toward the warm glow of windows in the distance. Noah answered their knock with an expression that might have been relief. Was beginning to think you weren't coming, he said, stepping back to allow them entry. The aroma of beef stew filled the kitchen, making Lily's stomach growl embarrassingly. We were just getting settled, she explained, helping Charlie remove his shoes at the door. "Thank you again for the cabin. It's perfect." Noah shrugged off her gratitude, moving to the stove where a large pot simmered. "Nothing fancy," he warned, stirring the contents. "But it's hot, and there's plenty of it." Dinner was a surprisingly comfortable affair. Noah didn't press Charlie to speak, instead addressing occasional questions to the boy that could be answered with nods or headshakes. He told stories about the ranch, its history stretching back to his great-grandfather's homesteading days, and the challenges of maintaining a cattle operation in changing times. "The bees are what keep us afloat," he explained, breaking a roll in half and passing part to Charlie. "Started as a hobby of my mother's, but when cattle prices dropped, the honey business became our lifeline. Now I maintain about 100 hives and provide pollination services to farms within a 100-mile radius." Lily listened with growing interest. "That's substantial. How do you manage it all yourself?" "Barely," Noah admitted. "Hired seasonal help last year, but good workers are hard to find. Most people are afraid of bees or don't have the patience for them." "Charlie and I aren't afraid," Lily offered. "We've been working with bees since he was old enough to wear a tiny bee suit. Dave used to say he'd never seen a steadier hand with a smoker than Charlie's." At the mention of his father, Charlie looked up from his stew, a fleeting expression of sorrow crossing his face before he returned his attention to his bowl. Noah noticed but didn't comment. Instead, he asked, "What happened to your colonies? Dave mentioned in his letters that you had a thriving operation." Lily sighed, the familiar ache of failure settling in her chest. "Colony collapse disorder, mostly. We lost 80% of our hives over 2 seasons. Then, pests took most of what remained. We tried everything. New queens, different locations, supplemental feeding, but nothing worked. The debts piled up faster than we could manage after Dave." She glanced at Charlie, always careful about how she referenced his father's death. "I'm sorry," Noah said, his voice genuine. "It's happening all over. Pesticides, habitat loss, climate change. The bees are suffering. Have you had trouble here?" Lily couldn't help asking, professional interest overriding her fatigue. Noah shook his head. "Some losses, but nothing catastrophic. Being isolated helps. Nearest commercial farm that uses heavy pesticides is 30 miles away. And we plant specifically for the bees. Clover, lavender, sunflowers." Charlie perked up at the mention of sunflowers, looking at Noah with renewed interest. "You like sunflowers, Charlie?" Noah asked, noticing the boy's reaction. Charlie nodded emphatically, then made a gesture with his hands, indicating something tall. "We have a whole field of them," Noah told him. "Planted them east of the house so they face the morning sun. They'll be blooming in a few weeks. Tallest ones grow higher than my head." For the first time since their arrival, Lily saw genuine excitement in her son's eyes. It was a small thing, but it kindled hope in her heart. Perhaps here, in this place, Charlie might find his way back to himself, might even find his voice again. After dinner, Noah surprised them by producing their jar of honey and 3 spoons. "Thought we might try your wildflower honey," he suggested. "Compare it to our local variety." He set their jar beside one of his own, a darker amber liquid with a handwritten label reading Sunflower Valley Ranch High Country Wildflower. "Just a taste," he said, removing the lids from both jars. Honey connoisseurs do tastings like wine experts. Charlie watched with obvious interest as Noah demonstrated, dipping a small spoon into Lily's honey and placing it on his tongue. He hummed appreciatively. "Subtle, floral notes with a hint of... Is that sage?" Lily nodded, surprised by his accuracy. "Western sage grew wild around our property." Noah offered spoons to both of them, and they sampled his honey in turn. The flavor was bold and complex, with a distinctive richness that made Lily's eyebrows rise in appreciation. "That's exceptional," she said honestly. "Higher altitude flowers have more concentrated nectar." "Higher maintenance bees too," Noah replied with a smile. "These mountain bees are stubborn as the day is long." Charlie, to their mutual surprise, helped himself to another small taste of Noah's honey, his expression one of serious consideration. He looked at Noah and gave a decisive nod of approval that made both adults smile. High praise from a fellow beekeeper, Noah acknowledged with matching gravity. As the evening drew to a close, Lily noticed Charlie fighting to keep his eyes open, the exhaustion of their journey finally catching up with him. "We should get back to the cabin," she said, rising from the table. "Thank you for dinner. It was wonderful." Noah walked them to the door, Ranger trailing behind Charlie as if reluctant to see the boy leave. "I'll come by around 7 tomorrow morning," he told Lily. "Show you the apiary if you're feeling up to it." "We'll be ready," Lily promised, taking Charlie's hand. The night air was cool as they walked back to the cabin, stars blazing overhead in a way they never had in their suburban California neighborhood. Charlie's steps dragged with fatigue, and Lily wasn't surprised when he fell asleep almost as soon as she'd helped him into his pajamas. Sitting on the edge of his bed, Lily brushed a lock of hair from his forehead, studying his peaceful face in the dim light. "Sweet dreams, little bee," she whispered, using Dave's old nickname for him. "I think we might have found a safe place to land." Later, as she prepared for bed herself, Lily stood at the small window, looking out at the shadowy forms of mountains against the starlit sky. The future remained uncertain, but for the first time in 18 months, it didn't feel hopeless. Noah Garrett might have offered them sanctuary out of obligation to her late husband, but his kindness seemed genuine, his need for help with the apiary legitimate. Tomorrow they would begin again, not the life they had planned, not the future Dave had envisioned for them, but something new. Something that might, with time and care, grow into its own kind of sweetness. As Lily finally surrendered to exhaustion, her last conscious thought was of Noah's words at breakfast. "You can stay if no bees follow." It seemed a fair bargain, though she couldn't help wondering what other unspoken conditions might exist, and whether she and Charlie could meet them. The weeks flowed into a rhythm at Sunflower Valley Ranch, with early mornings filled with golden light and the soft hum of awakening bees. Lily stood at the kitchen window of the foreman's cabin, sipping coffee as she watched the sun crest the eastern mountains. A month had passed since they had arrived on Noah Garrett's doorstep, desperate and uncertain. Now her hands moved with quiet confidence as she prepared breakfast, the scent of frying bacon mingling with the wild sage that grew along the cabin's foundation. "Charlie," she called softly, setting plates on the small wooden table. "Breakfast is ready." Her son emerged from the bedroom, his hair tousled from sleep, but his eyes clear and alert in a way they hadn't been in California. The mountain air agreed with him, bringing color to his cheeks and a quiet energy to his movements. He still hadn't spoken, but Lily had begun to hope again. Sometimes she caught him mouthing words to Ranger when he thought no one was watching, rehearsing speech like a forgotten skill. "We're checking the new queens today," she reminded him as he slid into his chair. "Noah says they should be well established by now." Charlie nodded, his expression brightening at the mention of the apiary. The bees had become his sanctuary, just as they had been in their old life. Noah had observed Charlie's natural talent with amazement, commenting that the boy had a touch that couldn't be taught. The rare ability to move among the hives without causing alarm, to sense when a colony was thriving or struggling. "Eat up," Lily encouraged, ruffling his hair. "We don't want to keep the bees waiting." As they walked the well-worn path to the main house, Lily marveled at how quickly the ranch had become familiar. The gentle slope of the pasture, the weathered fence posts draped with morning glory vines, the distant lowing of cattle. Charlie skipped ahead, stopping occasionally to examine interesting rocks or follow the progress of a beetle across the path. Noah was waiting by the equipment shed, organizing tools for the day's work. He looked up as they approached, his customary reserve softening into something that resembled welcome. "Morning," he greeted, handing Charlie a small hive tool that Lily recognized as one he'd modified specially for the boy's smaller hands. "Ready to check on those carnal ends?" Charlie accepted the tool with solemn dignity, his expression serious as he examined the equipment laid out on the workbench. Noah had gradually entrusted him with more responsibility around the apiary, recognizing that despite his youth and silence, Charlie possessed an intuitive understanding of the bees' needs. "The new queens are doing well in the observation hives," Noah told Lily as they gathered smokers and protective gear. "If they continue to thrive, we'll be able to split more colonies next week. Could mean an additional 20% honey yield this season." Lily nodded, mentally calculating the potential impact on the ranch's income. She had begun keeping the apiary books, applying her accounting skills to Noah's somewhat haphazard record-keeping system. The operation was more profitable than he'd realized, with significant potential for growth if managed properly. "I've been researching queen breeding," she ventured, pulling on her bee jacket. "With your isolated location and diverse forage, we could develop a strain specifically adapted to high-altitude conditions. There's a market for that among mountain beekeepers." Noah considered her suggestion, adjusting the straps on Charlie's protective gear with careful hands. "Breeding our own queens would cut costs," he acknowledged. "And if they're better suited to local conditions." "Less winter die-off," Lily finished. "Stronger spring build-up." Noah's eyes met hers over Charlie's head, a moment of shared understanding that had become increasingly common between them. "Always thinking ahead, aren't you?" Lily shrugged, but pleasure warmed her at the recognition. Habit from the old days. Dave and I were always planning the next season, the next expansion. The mention of her late husband no longer brought the sharp pain it once had. Here, with the mountains rising around them and the promise of a new day's work ahead, Dave felt like a part of their story rather than its tragic end. The morning passed in comfortable collaboration as they moved among the hives, checking brood patterns and honey stores, assessing the health of each colony. Charlie worked alongside them, carefully handling frames and watching attentively as Noah demonstrated how to identify a well-mated queen. "See how her abdomen is long and tapered?" Noah explained, pointing to a marked queen moving deliberately across the frame. "And the workers make way for her, forming a court around her as she moves." Charlie nodded, his eyes following the queen's progress with fascination. He glanced up at Noah with an expression that clearly asked a question. "Why is she marked with a blue dot?" Noah interpreted correctly, his ability to understand Charlie's unspoken communication growing more impressive by the day. "That tells us she was introduced to the hive last year. Different colors for different years helps us track how old the queens are." Lily watched their interaction with a mixture of gratitude and wonder. Noah had never pushed Charlie to speak, had never treated his silence as a deficiency that needed fixing. Instead, he had simply adjusted, learning to read the boy's expressions and gestures, responding to his nonverbal questions with the same seriousness he would give to spoken ones. By midday, the sun had climbed high overhead, its heat intensifying even in the mountain air. "Let's break for lunch," Noah suggested, helping Charlie close up the last hive. "I made sandwiches." The simple announcement would have been unremarkable if not for the fact that in their first weeks at the ranch, Noah had rarely prepared food for them, accepting Lily's cooking with appreciation but maintaining that boundary of provider versus guest. The gradual shift, Noah leaving fresh eggs on their porch, bringing home extra groceries without being asked, and now making lunch with the casual assumption they would share it, spoke volumes about how their arrangement had evolved. They ate in the shade of a massive cottonwood tree, its leaves creating shifting patterns of light across the picnic blanket Noah had spread over the grass. Charlie sat cross-legged, methodically deconstructing his sandwich to eat each component separately, a habit that had once driven Dave to distraction but that Noah observed with amused tolerance. "The alfalfa fields at the Henderson place will be ready for pollination next week," Noah commented, passing a jar of lemonade to Lily. "Usually move about 20 hives over there. Could use an extra pair of hands if you're interested." Lily understood the invitation beneath the practical request. Moving hives was delicate work, requiring trust and coordination between partners. "We'd be happy to help," she replied, catching the subtle relief in Noah's expression. "Charlie's getting pretty good at using the smoker." The boy looked up at the mention of his name, a smear of peanut butter at the corner of his mouth. Noah reached out automatically, wiping it away with his thumb in a gesture so paternal it made Lily's heart constrict. "You're turning into a real beekeeper," Noah told Charlie, his voice gruff with something that might have been pride. "Your dad would be impressed." Charlie's eyes widened slightly at the direct reference to Dave, then he ducked his head, returning his attention to his lunch. But Lily noticed his shoulders straighten, a small flush of pleasure coloring his cheeks. After lunch, they moved to a different section of the apiary, where Noah had been experimenting with various flowering plants to extend the nectar flow season. Lily knelt beside a patch of purple coneflowers, examining the soil. "These are struggling," she observed. "Too much clay in this section, maybe? They prefer better drainage." Noah crouched beside her, frowning at the wilting plants. "Planted them last fall. Thought they'd do better than this." "We could amend the soil," Lily suggested. "Add some compost and sand to improve drainage." Or move them to a better location and try something else here. Maybe borage? It's tolerant of clay soils, and the bees love it. Noah looked at her with a thoughtful expression. You're thinking long-term. The observation hung between them, heavy with implication. Their arrangement had never been defined beyond the immediate need. Shelter for Lily and Charlie. Help with the bees for Noah. Neither had spoken of how long they might stay. Whether this temporary solution might become something more permanent. I suppose I am, Lily admitted, meeting his gaze steadily. Is that a problem? Noah was silent for a moment, his eyes moving from her face to where Charlie was carefully inspecting a line of lavender plants, Ranger at his side. No, he said finally. It's not a problem at all. The weight of unspoken possibilities settled around them like pollen on still water. Neither rushed to disturb it with words that might clarify, but also confine what was growing between them. They worked until evening approached, the lengthening shadows a reminder of passing time. As they packed away equipment, Noah hesitated, then said, I need to head into town tomorrow for supplies. Thought you and Charlie might want to come along. Change of scenery. The invitation was casual, but Lily recognized it for what it was. A step beyond the boundaries of the ranch, an acknowledgement that their connection existed beyond the practical arrangement of work and shelter. We'd like that, she replied simply. Charlie needs new shoes anyway. He's growing like a weed with all this mountain air and honey. Noah's smile came more easily now than it had in those first tense days. 7 o'clock, we can have breakfast at Ruby's Diner. Best pancakes in 3 counties. As they walked back to the cabin in the golden light of approaching sunset, Charlie skipping ahead with Ranger, Lily found herself contemplating how much had changed in a month. The desperate widow and her silent child who had arrived at dawn with nothing but a jar of honey had been replaced by this stronger version of themselves, still healing, still finding their way, but no longer quite so broken. That evening, as Charlie slept deeply in his small bed, Lily sat on the cabin's porch, listening to the night sounds of the ranch, the distant lowing of cattle, the gentle rustle of aspen leaves, the occasional hoot of a great-horned owl hunting in the meadow. The Milky Way stretched overhead, a river of stars illuminating the vastness beyond their small world. She heard footsteps approaching and wasn't surprised when Noah materialized from the darkness, 2 steaming mugs in his hands. Thought you might still be up, he said, offering her one of the mugs. Made tea. Lily accepted the tea with a smile, the warmth seeping through the ceramic into her palms. It's too beautiful to sleep sometimes, she admitted, gesturing to the star-filled sky. We never saw stars like this in California. Noah settled onto the step beside her, close enough that she could feel the solid warmth of him against the night's growing chill. Dave mentioned that once in a letter, said you missed seeing the stars. Light pollution from the city. The casual reference to her late husband no longer felt like a barrier between them, but rather a shared connection. He loved the outdoors, Lily said softly. Always talked about having land someday, room for the bees to thrive and for Charlie to run free. Noah nodded, his profile limned in starlight. He would have made a good rancher. Had that patience you need when working with living things. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, sipping tea and watching the stars wheel slowly overhead. Finally, Noah spoke again, his voice thoughtful. Been thinking about what you said about queen breeding, he began. Makes good sense, especially with the changing climate. Hardier bees, better adapted to local conditions. Lily turned toward him, surprised by the shift in conversation. It would be a significant investment of time, but I think the payoff could be substantial. That's just it, Noah continued, his eyes on the distant mountains rather than her face. It's a long-term project. 3-5 years maybe, before we'd see the full benefits. Selective breeding takes time. The implication hung between them, unspoken but clear. A long-term project assumed a long-term presence. Yes, Lily agreed carefully. It does take time. Noah was silent again, gathering his thoughts. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and deliberate. I want you to know that you and Charlie are welcome here for as long as you want to stay. Not just because of Dave, not just because I need help with the bees, but because, he paused, searching for words, because the ranch feels more like home with you both here." The admission, simple but profound, settled in Lily's heart like a queen bee finding her place in a new hive. Tentative at first, then with growing certainty. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice catching. "We felt that too, like we belonged here somehow." Noah's hand found hers in the darkness, calloused fingers closing gently around her own. They didn't speak again, but sat together under the canopy of stars, the contact between them saying everything that words could not yet express. The trip to town the next day marked a turning point. Eden's Creek was a small mountain community, one main street lined with modest businesses, a general store, hardware shop, diner, and the essential services that supported the surrounding ranches and farms. As Noah's truck rumbled down the main street, Lily noticed the curious glances from locals, the subtle nods of recognition directed at Noah. "Not many strangers here," Noah explained, parking in front of the general store. "Everyone knows everyone's business. Or thinks they do." Charlie pressed his face to the window, eyes wide at the novelty of buildings clustered together after weeks of open spaces. Ranger sat between him and Noah, his tail thumping against the seat with canine excitement. "Fair warning," Noah added as they prepared to exit the truck. "People will ask questions. They've known me since I was born, and they're not subtle." Lily smoothed Charlie's hair and straightened her own shirt, suddenly conscious of their appearance. "What should we tell them? About why we're staying at the ranch?" Noah considered this, his hand resting on the door handle. "The truth is simplest. You're Dave Morgan's widow and son. You're helping with the bees. The rest is nobody's business but ours." The possessive plural, ours, didn't escape Lily's notice. She nodded, gathering her courage as they stepped onto the sidewalk, Charlie's hand firmly in hers. They hadn't made it 10 feet before the first greeting called out from the hardware store's open door. "Noah Garrett, twice in 1 month, must be a record." A stocky man with iron-gray hair emerged, wiping his hands on a cloth. His sharp eyes immediately took in Lily and Charlie. "And you've brought company." "Don't believe I've had the pleasure." Noah made the introductions with his usual economy of words. "Frank, this is Lily Morgan and her son Charlie. They're staying at the ranch, helping with the apiary. Lily, Charlie, this is Frank Townsend. Owns the hardware store, knows everything about everyone, whether they want him to or not." Frank laughed, extending a hand to Lily. "Don't mind Noah. Been a grump since he was knee-high to a grasshopper." His weathered face softened as he looked at Charlie. "Fine-looking boy you've got there, ma'am. Got your eyes, I see." Before Lily could respond, a woman emerged from the general store, her arms laden with bags. "Noah, I thought that was your truck. You're just in time to help me with these groceries." She stopped short at the sight of Lily and Charlie, curiosity brightening her expression. "Well, hello there." "Margaret Collins," Noah supplied, relieving the woman of several bags, "runs the general store and the local gossip mill. Margaret, meet Lily and Charlie Morgan." Margaret's eyebrows rose slightly. "Morgan? Any relation to Dave Morgan from Noah's unit?" "My late husband," Lily confirmed quietly. Understanding dawned in Margaret's eyes, followed swiftly by warmth. "Oh, honey." Noah spoke highly of Dave whenever he mentioned his service. "I'm so sorry for your loss." She turned to Charlie, her voice gentling further. "And this must be the son Dave never got to meet. Noah mentioned that tragedy." Lily felt Charlie press against her side, not fearful but reserved in the face of this attention from strangers. Noah, noticing the boy's discomfort, smoothly changed the subject. "We're headed to Ruby's for breakfast, then need to pick up some supplies. Charlie here needs new shoes. Outgrowing everything with all that mountain air." Margaret beamed. "Ruby's cinnamon rolls just came out of the oven. Perfect timing." She touched Lily's arm lightly. "Don't be a stranger, dear. Stop by the store before you head back to the ranch. I've got some children's books that my grandkids have outgrown. Good adventure stories that a boy Charlie's age might enjoy." As they continued down the street, more introductions followed. The postmaster, the feed store owner, the elderly barber who had apparently given Noah his first haircut 30-some years ago. Each greeting carried the same pattern of curiosity, recognition of their connection to Dave, and a warmth that suggested provisional acceptance into the tight-knit community. Ruby's Diner was a cheerful establishment with red vinyl booths and the promised aroma of fresh cinnamon rolls permeating the air. The breakfast crowd turned almost as one when they entered, conversations pausing momentarily before resuming with increased energy. Noah Garrett, with a woman and child, an elderly man at the counter stage, whispered to his companion, "Mark the calendar, Herb. Historic day." Noah ignored the comment, guiding them to a booth near the back. A robust woman with steel-gray hair pulled into a neat bun approached, coffee pot in hand. "Well, well," she greeted, her sharp eyes taking in the trio. Noah Garrett socializing before noon. Will wonders never cease. "Morning, Ruby," Noah replied, unruffled by her teasing. "Coffee for me and Mrs. Morgan." "Chocolate milk for the boy, if you've got it." Ruby filled their cups, her appraising gaze lingering on Lily. "Mrs. Morgan, is it? Haven't seen new faces around here in a month of Sundays. You visiting long?" "Lily and Charlie are staying at the ranch," Noah answered, before Lily could formulate a response. "Helping with the apiary. Lily's a beekeeper from California." Ruby's expression shifted from curiosity to approval. "That's so? About time those bees had proper attention. Noah here knows cattle, but his mother was the real bee whisperer. Place hasn't been the same since she passed." Noah's face tightened slightly at the mention of his mother, a flicker of old grief that Lily recognized all too well. "3 breakfast specials," he said, clearly steering the conversation away from painful territory. "And a basket of those cinnamon rolls Charlie's been eyeing through the display case." As Ruby moved away to place their order, Lily leaned closer to Noah. "Everyone seems to know you very well," she observed quietly. "Small town," he replied with a shrug. "Born and raised here except for my time in the service. Not much privacy, but people look out for each other when it counts. They seem surprised to see you with company." Noah's mouth quirked in what might have been embarrassment. "Been keeping to myself since Dad died. Ranch takes all my time." What remained unspoken but understood was his isolation had been a choice, a retreat from the community that knew him too well, that perhaps reminded him of losses too painful to face daily. Yet here he was, bringing Lily and Charlie into town, introducing them not as temporary help but as people connected to him, to his home. Breakfast was a revelation. Plates piled high with fluffy pancakes, eggs cooked to perfection, and bacon so crisp it practically shattered at first bite. Charlie's eyes widened at the abundance, and even Lily, who prided herself on providing good meals at the cabin, had to admit Ruby's reputation for exceptional food was well-deserved. Between bites, Noah outlined their errands for the day: feed store for specialty bee supplements, hardware store for repair materials, general store for household supplies. Normal, mundane tasks made extraordinary by the fact that he included them so naturally in his routine, as if they had always been part of his life. As they were finishing their meal, the bell over the diner's door jingled, announcing a new arrival. Noah glanced up, his expression clouding slightly. "Problem?" Lily asked, noticing the change. "Not exactly," he murmured, nodding toward the door where a woman in her early 30s stood, scanning the diner. She was strikingly attractive, with sleek blonde hair and the polished appearance of someone more at home in a city than a rural mountain town. The woman spotted them, her face lighting with recognition as she made her way to their table. "Noah! I thought that was your truck outside." Her gaze shifted to Lily and Charlie, curiosity evident. "And you have guests. How unusual." "Rebecca," Noah acknowledged with a nod that was polite but lacking warmth. "This is Lily Morgan and her son Charlie. They're staying at the ranch." "Lily, Charlie, this is Rebecca Harrington. Her family owns the largest cattle operation in the county." Rebecca extended a manicured hand to Lily, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "How lovely to meet you. Are you relatives visiting from out of town?" The subtle emphasis on visiting wasn't lost on Lily. "We're from California," she replied, matching Rebecca's smile with one of equal politeness. "My late husband served with Noah in Afghanistan. We're helping with the apiary at Sunflower Valley." "How charitable of Noah," Rebecca commented, her gaze sliding to Noah with an expression that suggested a shared history. He's always had a soft spot for strays, haven't you, Noah? The condescension in her tone raised Lily's hackles, but before she could respond, Charlie unexpectedly reached across the table and placed his small hand over Noah's, a gesture of such clear allegiance that it left the adults momentarily speechless. Noah recovered first, his expression softening as he looked at the boy. "Charlie's got a natural way with the bees," he said, his voice warming with genuine pride. "Best helper I've had in years." Rebecca's perfect smile faltered slightly. "Well, isn't that sweet? I won't keep you from your breakfast. Just want to remind you about the Cattlemen's Association dinner next Saturday. Daddy's expecting you to attend. You did promise, after all." Noah nodded, his expression neutral once more. "Wouldn't miss it. Your father's been a good neighbor." With a final assessing glance at Lily, Rebecca departed, leaving behind a lingering scent of expensive perfume and unspoken complication. "Friend of yours?" Lily asked carefully, trying to keep her tone casual. Noah sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Rebecca's father helped my dad out of a tight spot years back. Her family's been good to ours. Rebecca herself." He hesitated, choosing his words. "She has certain expectations that I've never encouraged." The explanation was diplomatic but clear. Lily felt a knot of tension she hadn't realized she was holding released slightly. "I see. It's not," Noah began, then stopped, his eyes meeting Lily's with unexpected intensity. "There's nothing there, never has been. Not on my side, anyway." The statement hung between them, weighted with implications neither was quite ready to voice. Charlie, oblivious to the adult undercurrents, happily dunked a piece of cinnamon roll into his chocolate milk, creating a mess that effectively broke the moment. As they cleaned up Charlie's sticky fingers and prepared to leave the diner, Ruby approached with their bill and an extra cinnamon roll wrapped in wax paper. "For the road," she told Charlie with a wink. "Growing boy needs fuel." She turned to Lily, her expression warm but assessing. "You come back and see me here?" Been too long since anyone's made that grumpy cowboy smile like that. The rest of the morning passed in a flurry of errands, each stop adding another layer to Lily's understanding of Noah's place in this community. He was respected, even beloved, but also the subject of concern, the solitary rancher who had withdrawn into his work after too many losses. And now here he was, with Lily and Charlie in tow, stepping back into the flow of community life. The significance wasn't lost on the townspeople, nor on Lily herself. Something was changing at Sunflower Valley Ranch, something as subtle and profound as the transformation of nectar into honey, a slow alchemy of sweetness from disparate elements. Summer stretched into early autumn, painting the mountains with splashes of gold and crimson as aspen leaves began their annual transformation. The apiary thrived under their combined care, honey extraction keeping them busy from dawn until dusk. Lily wiped perspiration from her brow as she unsealed another frame, the rich aroma of fresh honey filling the extraction room Noah had built years ago beside the equipment shed. "This batch is exceptional," she commented, holding a dripping frame up to the light. The honey gleamed amber and gold, capturing the essence of late summer wildflowers. The lavender fields really made a difference. Noah nodded from where he was operating the extractor, his shirt sleeves rolled up to expose forearms tanned and strong from outdoor work. "Your idea to expand the forage plantings paid off. Yields up 30% from last year." Pride warmed Lily's chest at the acknowledgement. The lavender field had been her suggestion, a significant investment that Noah had approved without hesitation, trusting her judgment. Their partnership had evolved over the months, initial wariness giving way to mutual respect and a deepening bond neither had anticipated. Charlie burst through the door, his small face alight with excitement. In his cupped hands he held something with careful reverence. "What have you got there, buddy?" Noah asked, stepping away from the extractor. Charlie opened his hands to reveal a monarch butterfly, its wings gently opening and closing as it rested on his palm. The vibrant orange stood out against the boy's skin, a living flame entrusted to his care. "It's beautiful," Lily said, smiling at her son's gentle wonder. "Where did you find it?" Charlie pointed toward the milkweed patch they had planted in spring, a butterfly sanctuary that had been his special project. The boy had spent hours tending the plants, watching caterpillars transform in their chrysalises, documenting the process in a notebook Noah had given him. Though he still hadn't spoken, his communication had expanded. Gestures, expressions, and, lately, simple drawings that conveyed his thoughts with increasing clarity. Noah crouched to Charlie's level, examining the butterfly with appropriate solemnity. "Must be getting ready to migrate," he observed. "Long journey ahead. Mexico's a far piece from Colorado." Charlie nodded, his expression turning thoughtful. He extended his hands toward the open window, allowing the monarch to rest a moment longer before it fluttered its wings and took flight, sailing on the breeze toward its distant destination. Watching the butterfly's departure, Lily felt a kinship with the delicate creature. They too had made a long journey, navigating loss and uncertainty to find this unexpected sanctuary. But unlike the monarch, she and Charlie weren't preparing to leave. They were putting down roots, becoming as much a part of Sunflower Valley as the lavender fields and beehives. "The Henderson contract came through," Noah announced, returning to the extractor. "They want 20 more hives for next spring's pollination. We'll need to build more equipment this winter." "We?" Lily questioned softly, the plural still sometimes catching her by surprise despite the months they'd spent working side by side. Noah's eyes met hers, steady and certain. "Unless you've got other plans." The question beneath the question hung in the air between them. Plans, future, commitment. Words they still circled cautiously, neither quite ready to claim what was developing between them. "No other plans," Lily assured him, resuming her work with the honey frames. "Charlie and I are exactly where we want to be." Relief flickered across Noah's face, there and gone in an instant. But Lily caught it. Despite the ease that had grown between them, Noah still harbored a fear she'd recognized from the beginning, the fear of being left alone again. It echoed her own lingering insecurity, the worry that their welcome might eventually wear thin. Later that evening, as Charlie helped Noah clean equipment, Lily checked her phone and found a message from Margaret at the general store. "Package arrived for you. Special order." Anticipation fluttered in her chest. She'd been waiting for this delivery for weeks, saving from the modest salary Noah now insisted on paying her, despite her protests, that room and board were sufficient. "I need to run into town," she told Noah, who looked up in surprise. "Everything okay?" "Fine," she assured him. "Just need to pick something up from Margaret before the store closes." "Won't be long." Noah glanced at his watch. "Store closes in 40 minutes. Take my truck," he offered, fishing keys from his pocket. "Charlie and I will finish up here." The casual trust in the gesture, lending his beloved truck, staying behind with Charlie, wasn't lost on Lily. She accepted the keys with a smile, her fingers brushing his in a touch that lingered just a moment longer than necessary. The drive into Eden's Creek had become familiar over the months, the winding mountain road no longer intimidating, but rather a connection between their peaceful ranch existence and the small community that had gradually accepted them. Faces now greeted Lily with recognition and warmth when she entered the general store, Margaret waving from behind the counter. "Right on time," the older woman said with a knowing smile. "Been keeping this safe in the back room." She disappeared briefly, returning with a package wrapped in brown paper. "Had to shoo Rebecca Harrington away twice. That girl's nosier than a bloodhound with a head cold." Lily thanked her, carefully stowing the package in her bag. "How are the wedding preparations coming?" she asked, referring to Margaret's daughter's upcoming nuptials. "Lord have mercy, that girl's going to be the death of me," Margaret sighed dramatically, though her eyes twinkled with maternal pride. "Changed her mind about the flowers again yesterday. But speaking of celebrations," she continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially, "heard anything more about Noah's big surprise?" Lily's brow furrowed in confusion. "Surprise?" Margaret's eyes widened. "Oh, I assumed you knew. He was in here last week asking Frank about refurbishing that old piano in his mother's music room. Said something about a birthday coming up." Heat rose in Lily's cheeks. Her birthday was indeed approaching, October 15th, but she hadn't mentioned it to Noah. How had he known? "Must be mistaken," she murmured, though curiosity prickled. "Anyway, I should get back. Thanks for holding the package." The drive back to the ranch was filled with speculation. The old piano had been covered with a sheet in the rarely used music room since they'd arrived, a relic of Noah's mother, who had apparently been an accomplished pianist. He never entered that room, as far as Lily knew. As she pulled the truck into the yard, the golden light of early evening bathed the ranch buildings in warmth. Charlie and Noah sat on the porch of the main house, a chessboard between them. The sight stopped Lily in her tracks. Her silent son, intensely focused on the game, and the once solitary rancher studying the board with equal concentration, waiting patiently for the boy's move. Neither noticed her immediately, giving Lily a moment to absorb the tableau they created, a picture of domestic tranquility she had never expected to find again after Dave's death. Charlie reached out, moved a piece with deliberate care, then looked up at Noah with a question in his eyes. Noah's face broke into a grin. "Checkmate in 3 moves," he confirmed. "You're getting too good at this, partner." Charlie's smile, still rare but increasingly frequent, illuminated his face as he spotted Lily approaching. He waved excitedly, pointing to the chessboard with evident pride. "He beat me fair and square," Noah explained as Lily joined them. "Second time this week." "My genius son," Lily said, ruffling Charlie's hair affectionately. "And a patient teacher," she added, her eyes meeting Noah's. Something shifted in his expression. A softening, a longing quickly veiled. "Get what you needed in town?" Lily patted her bag. "Mission accomplished. Margaret sends her regards. Said Rebecca's been hanging around the store, apparently quite interested in any packages that might arrive for me." Noah's jaw tightened slightly at the mention of Rebecca. "She's been persistent lately." "Because of the cattleman's dinner tomorrow night?" Lily ventured, remembering the upcoming event that Noah had mentioned with increasing reluctance as the date approached. "Likely," he admitted, putting away the chess pieces with deliberate care. "Her father's retiring, handing over the reins of their operation. Big night for their family." Lily nodded, understanding the politics of rural communities well enough now to recognize the importance of such occasions. "You should wear your good boots," she suggested lightly. "The ones we polished last week." Noah looked up, surprise evident in his face. "You're not upset about me going?" The question revealed more than he perhaps intended, a concern for her feelings, an awareness of potential jealousy. "Why would I be?" Lily replied, keeping her tone casual despite the flutter in her chest. "It's important for the ranch, for our business relationships. Rebecca's interest in you isn't your fault." Noah stood, his height casting a long shadow in the evening light. Would you consider coming with me?" The invitation emerged hesitantly, as if he'd been weighing it for some time. "Both of you," he added quickly, including Charlie with a glance. "It's not exactly exciting for kids, but there'll be others there. The Hendersons' grandchildren, the Wilsons' kids." The request hung between them, weighted with significance beyond a simple social engagement. This would be a public declaration of sorts, an introduction of Lily and Charlie not just as workers on his ranch, but as what exactly? The nature of their relationship remained undefined, existing in the spaces between words, in shared meals and lingering glances, in the gradual integration of their lives. "We'd be honored," Lily said simply, watching relief wash over Noah's features. "Though I'm not sure I have anything suitable to wear." "You'll outshine everyone there wearing a potato sack," Noah replied with unexpected fervor, then looked immediately embarrassed by his candor. Charlie giggled silently at Noah's discomfort, earning a playful scowl from the rancher. "Traitor," Noah muttered, but his eyes were warm with affection for the boy. That night, after Charlie was asleep, Lily carefully unwrapped her package from town. The dress she'd ordered from a catalog in Margaret's store emerged from its tissue paper wrapping, a simple design in deep blue that had caught her eye weeks ago. She'd ordered it on impulse, a desire to have something pretty after months of practical clothes for ranch work. Now it seemed prescient, as if some part of her had anticipated Noah's invitation. As she tried it on, standing before the small mirror in the cabin's bathroom, Lily barely recognized herself. The woman reflected back had strength in her shoulders that hadn't been there 6 months ago, confidence in her posture that spoke of hard work and earned respect. The haunted look that had shadowed her eyes after Dave's death had given way to something else. Not forgetting, never that, but a moving forward that honored the past without being imprisoned by it. "Oh, Dave," she whispered to the empty room. "I think we're going to be okay." Charlie's finding his way. And Noah. She paused, emotion tightening her throat. Noah's been our miracle. I didn't expect to find this again. Didn't think I deserved it. The next evening arrived with a flurry of activity. Noah appeared at the cabin door, looking transformed in a crisp white shirt, polished boots, and a bolo tie with a silver clasp. His hair was neatly combed, the usual stubble on his jaw shaved clean, revealing a strong chin and the slight cleft that was usually hidden. You clean up nice, cowboy, Lily teased, though her pulse quickened at the sight of him. So do you, he replied, his eyes widening as he took in her appearance. The simple blue dress highlighted the golden tan she'd acquired working outdoors, and the subtle curves that months of physical labor had toned. You look beautiful, Lily. The compliment, delivered with such sincerity, warmed her face. Thank you. Charlie's just finishing his tie. He insisted on wearing one to match yours. As if summoned, Charlie emerged from his room, small fingers struggling with a child-sized bolo tie that Margaret had found in the back of the general store, a relic from another rancher's son, now grown and gone. He looked up at Noah with frustrated appeal in his eyes. Here, partner, let me help you with that, Noah offered, crouching to adjust the tie with careful fingers. The tenderness in the gesture made Lily's heart constrict. This man, once so reserved and solitary, had opened his life and heart to them in ways neither had anticipated. The drive to the Cattlemen's Association dinner was filled with Charlie's silent excitement, his eyes wide as they approached the Mountain View Lodge where the event was being held. Twinkling lights illuminated the rustic building, pickup trucks and the occasional gleaming SUV filling the parking area. Quite the turnout, Lily observed, noting the crowd already gathering on the veranda. Noah nodded, a hint of tension in his jaw. Harrington's retirement is big news. Man's been president of the association for 20 years. As they approached the entrance, Charlie between them, Lily felt curious gazes turning in their direction. Noah's attendance at such events was apparently expected, but his arrival with companions was clearly noteworthy. She lifted her chin slightly, determined to face the scrutiny with grace. Noah, a booming voice called from the doorway. A tall, silver-haired man with a weathered face and commanding presence stepped forward, hand extended. Right on time, as always. Mr. Harrington, Noah greeted, shaking the offered hand. Congratulations on your retirement. The older man's shrewd eyes moved from Noah to Lily and Charlie. And who might these folks be? Don't believe we've been introduced. Noah straightened slightly, something like pride entering his posture. Jim Harrington, meet Lily Morgan and her son Charlie. They've been working with me at Sunflower Valley since spring. Lily's our bee expert, responsible for the 30% increase in honey production this season. Lily extended her hand, surprised by the firmness of the older man's grip. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Harrington. Noah speaks highly of your operation. Does he now? Harrington's eyes twinkled with interest. That's high praise coming from the most tight-lipped rancher in 3 counties. He crouched slightly, addressing Charlie at eye level. And you must be the young beekeeper I've heard about. My grandchildren could learn a thing or two about hard work from you, I expect. Charlie ducked his head shyly but stood his ground, earning an approving nod from Harrington. Well, come on in, the older man invited, gesturing toward the lodge's entrance. Rebecca's been watching the door like a hawk. She'll be pleased you made it, Noah. As if summoned by her name, Rebecca appeared in the doorway, stunning in a form-fitting red dress that seemed more appropriate for a city gala than a rural association dinner. Her smile faltered slightly as she registered Lily and Charlie's presence. Noah! Daddy said you'd confirmed, but I wasn't sure you'd tear yourself away from that ranch of yours, she greeted, stepping forward to place a familiar hand on his arm. Her gaze slid to Lily, assessing the simple blue dress with barely concealed dismissal. And you brought company. How nice. Lily and Charlie are joining us tonight, Noah confirmed, subtly shifting to create distance between himself and Rebecca's touch. Lily, you remember Rebecca Harrington from town. Of course, Lily replied with practiced politeness. Lovely to see you again, Rebecca. Congratulations on your father's retirement. I understand you'll be taking a leadership role in the operation. Surprise flickered across Rebecca's perfectly made-up face, clearly not expecting Lily to be informed about local ranching politics. Yes, well, someone has to carry on the family legacy. Not all of us have the luxury of starting fresh. The barb was subtle, but unmistakable, a reminder that Lily was an outsider, a newcomer without roots in this community. Before Lily could respond, Noah's hand came to rest lightly at the small of her back, a gesture of support and something more, possession, perhaps, or protection. Lily understands more about agricultural operations than most people born to it, he said quietly, his voice carrying just enough for those nearby to hear. Her expertise has transformed Sunflower Valley's prospects. We're fortunate she chose to stay. The emphasis on chose wasn't lost on anyone within earshot. A ripple of interest moved through the gathering crowd, the subtle shifting of alliances and assumptions that characterize small community dynamics. Rebecca's smile tightened almost imperceptibly as she recognized the public declaration in Noah's words and stance. "Well, isn't that sweet?" she managed, her voice honey over steel. "You must tell me all about beekeeping sometime, Lily. Such a quaint occupation." Before the conversation could deteriorate further, Charlie unexpectedly stepped forward, reaching into his pocket to withdraw something he offered to Rebecca with solemn dignity. A small jar of honey, barely larger than a thimble, wrapped with a tiny blue ribbon, one of the special sample jars Lily had prepared as gifts for potential buyers. The gesture, so unexpected and gracious from a child who had been silent witness to the undercurrents of adult tension, momentarily disarmed Rebecca. She accepted the tiny jar with visible surprise. "Thank you," she said, genuine warmth briefly replacing calculation in her expression. "That's very thoughtful." Charlie nodded seriously, then returned to Lily's side. Mission accomplished. Noah's face reflected pride and something deeper as he looked at the boy. "Shall we head inside?" Jim Harrington suggested, breaking the moment. "Dinner's about to be served, and I've seated you at our table, Noah. Your guests as well, of course." The evening proceeded with the expected rhythms of a community gathering. Dinner served family style at long tables, speeches congratulating Harrington on his years of service, discussions of cattle prices and water rights that flowed around them. Charlie, seated between Lily and Noah, behaved with remarkable patience for a child his age, earning approving nods from the older ranchers. Throughout the meal, Lily was acutely aware of the glances directed their way, curious, speculative, occasionally disapproving. Noah, traditionally a solitary figure at such gatherings, had arrived with a woman and child, seated them beside him, and was now openly including them in conversations, his hand occasionally coming to rest on Charlie's shoulder or brushing Lily's arm with casual intimacy. The implications weren't lost on anyone, least of all Rebecca, whose attempts to engage Noah's exclusive attention grew increasingly obvious as the evening progressed. Finally, as dessert was being served, she made her move. "Noah," she said, her voice carrying across the table, "I've been meaning to ask you about the Western Slope Association's proposal. Danny mentioned you had reservations about the water rights agreement." It was a deliberate gambit, steering conversation toward business matters where Noah's expertise would be centered and Lily potentially sidelined. But months of working alongside him had given Lily more than a passing familiarity with the issues facing local ranchers. "The snowpack data suggests we should be cautious about any long-term water allocation agreements," she offered, her voice confident but not intrusive. "Noah's been tracking the changing patterns for 3 seasons now. The projections for next year aren't encouraging." Noah looked at her with undisguised admiration. "Lily's been helping me compile the historical data," he explained to the table at large. "She's got a background in environmental biology that gives us a better perspective on the climate trends affecting our operations." Jim Harrington leaned forward with interest. "That's so? We could use that kind of analysis at the association level. Too many decisions being made on gut feeling rather than solid data." The conversation shifted, with Lily unexpectedly finding herself at its center, respected not as Noah's guest, but as a knowledgeable contributor to a community concerned about its future. Rebecca's attempt to exclude her had backfired spectacularly, resulting instead in an elevation of Lily's status among the influential ranchers gathered around the table. As the formal portion of the evening concluded and people began to mingle, Noah leaned close to Lily's ear. "You were amazing," he murmured, his breath warm against her skin. "Harrington never listens to anyone, but he was hanging on your every word." Lily felt a blush rising to her cheeks. "I just repeated what we've discussed at the ranch. Your observations, mostly." "Our observations," Noah corrected gently. Our work. Our future. The possessive plural hung between them, weighted with unspoken meaning. Before Lily could respond, a small orchestra began setting up in the corner of the lodge's main room, chairs being cleared to create a dance floor. Charlie, who had been remarkably patient throughout the lengthy dinner, began to show signs of fatigue, his eyes growing heavy despite his determination to behave like the little gentleman Noah had called him. "We should probably get him home," Lily suggested, watching her son stifle a yawn. Noah nodded, though reluctance showed in his expression. Of course. It's been a long evening for him. As they prepared to make their farewells, Rebecca intercepted them, her smile now brittle at the edges after an evening of watching her apparent plans for Noah's attention derailed. "Leaving so soon?" she asked, her gaze pointedly avoiding Lily to focus on Noah. "The dancing's just about to start. One waltz for old time's sake?" Noah hesitated, clearly caught between courtesy to a longtime neighbor and his desire to return home with Lily and Charlie. Recognizing his dilemma, Lily touched his arm lightly. "You should stay a while longer," she suggested quietly. "I can take Charlie home in your truck. You can catch a ride with Frank or the Hendersons when you're ready." Surprise and something like disappointment crossed Noah's face. "You sure? I don't mind leaving now." "It's important to maintain good relationships with the association," Lily reminded him, practical, despite the unexpected sting of watching Rebecca's triumphant expression. "I'll get Charlie to bed and wait up for you." Noah studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, but just one dance for courtesy's sake. Then I'm coming home." The emphasis on home, not back to the ranch, but home, carried weight that wasn't lost on either woman. As Lily gathered Charlie's jacket and prepared to leave, Noah crouched to the boy's level. "Thanks for being such a trooper tonight, partner," he said, straightening Charlie's little bolo tie. "Pretty sure you impressed every rancher in the county with those good manners." Charlie's tired face brightened at the praise. He reached into his pocket and pressed something into Noah's palm. Another tiny honey jar, twin to the one he'd given Rebecca. "What's this for, buddy?" Noah asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. Charlie pointed to the dance floor, then to the jar, his meaning somehow clear despite his silence. A sweet reminder to bring home. Noah's expression softened with understanding. "Don't worry," he promised solemnly. "I won't forget where I belong." As Lily and Charlie made their way to the exit, she felt Rebecca's gaze boring into her back, the weight of territorial claim in that stare. But Lily had faced greater threats than a spoiled rancher's daughter with designs on a man who, Lily now realized with startling clarity, had already given his heart elsewhere. The drive back to Sunflower Valley was peaceful, Charlie falling asleep against her side, his small body trusting and warm. Stars blazed overhead as Lily navigated the familiar roads, her mind replaying the evening's events. The introductions, the subtle power plays, the moment when Noah had publicly claimed them as part of his world. Not hired help, not temporary guests, but essential components of the future he envisioned. As the truck crested the final hill before the ranch came into view, Lily saw their cabin in the distance, a solitary light burning in welcome. Beyond it, the main house stood dark except for the porch light Noah always left on when they were out. Between the structures, the apiary lay in moonlit silence, the hives like small sentinels guarding the sweet treasure within. "We're home, Charlie," she whispered, though her son slept on, unaware of their arrival. "We're home." October arrived with crisp mornings and the scent of wood smoke hanging in the mountain air. Lily stood on the cabin porch, cradling a steaming mug of coffee as she watched the sunrise paint the eastern sky in shades of amber and rose. 6 months had passed since that desperate dawn when she and Charlie had arrived at Sunflower Valley Ranch with nothing but a jar of honey and fading hope. Now, as golden light spilled across the valley, illuminating beehives and meadows touched with autumn frost, Lily marveled at the transformation. The hollow-eyed widow and her silent child had found more than sanctuary here. They had found purpose, community, and the courage to begin again. The sound of a truck engine broke the morning stillness. Noah's vehicle appeared on the road from town, an unusual sight at this early hour. He had left before dawn, mysterious about his errand, saying only that he needed to pick something up before the day's work began. Lily watched as he parked and emerged from the cab, carrying what appeared to be a large, flat box. His face, normally serious, bore an expression of barely contained excitement that sparked her curiosity. "Morning," he called, striding toward the cabin. "Charlie up yet?" "Still sleeping," Lily replied, setting her coffee aside. "He was helping you with the fence repairs until sunset yesterday. Wore himself out." Noah nodded, carefully placing the box on the porch. "Good. That gives us a few minutes." He straightened, suddenly appearing almost nervous. "Happy birthday, Lily." Surprise warmed her chest. "How did you know?" "Your driver's license," he admitted with a sheepish smile. "Saw the date when you showed it to Ruby to cash that check back in August. Been planning for a while." Touched by his thoughtfulness, Lily glanced at the mysterious box. "What is this?" "Open it and see," Noah encouraged, his normally confident voice tinged with uncertainty. "If you don't like it, I can—" "Let me open it first before you start worrying," Lily interrupted gently, kneeling beside the box. She carefully lifted the lid to reveal layers of tissue paper, which she pushed aside to discover a gorgeous honey-colored dress. The fabric shimmered in the morning light, its simple lines elegant yet practical, with delicate embroidery along the hemline, tiny bees and wildflowers stitched in gold thread. "Noah," she breathed, lifting the dress from its wrapping. "It's beautiful. Margaret helped," he explained quickly. "Said you'd admired it in one of her catalogs. The embroidery was extra. Found a woman in Eden's Creek who does custom work." Lily ran her fingers over the detailed stitching, recognizing the bees as perfect miniature replicas of their own honey producers, the flowers exact matches for those growing in the meadows surrounding the apiary. "It's perfect," she whispered, emotion tightening her throat. "Thank you." Relief washed over Noah's features. "There's more," he said, reaching into his jacket pocket to withdraw a small velvet pouch. "This was my mother's. Found it when I was clearing out the music room last week." Lily accepted the pouch with trembling fingers, loosening the drawstring to reveal a delicate gold necklace with a pendant in the shape of a honeybee, tiny amber stones forming its body. "She loved the bees too," Noah explained, his voice softening with the memory. "Started our first hives when I was about Charlie's age. I remember her wearing this every day until she got sick." The significance of the gift, not just a beautiful object but a treasured family heirloom, brought tears to Lily's eyes. "I'm honored," she managed, clutching the necklace carefully. "But are you sure? This should stay in your family." Something shifted in Noah's expression, vulnerability and determination mingling in his gaze. "That's what I'm hoping for," he said quietly. Before Lily could process the implication of his words, the cabin door creaked open and Charlie appeared, tousled from sleep, but brightening at the sight of Noah. He rubbed his eyes, then noticed the dress still draped across Lily's lap and the necklace in her hand. His eyebrows rose in silent question. "It's your mom's birthday," Noah explained, ruffling the boy's hair affectionately. "Thought she deserved something special." He checked his watch. "And we've got just enough time before chores to give her the rest of her surprise." Charlie's eyes widened with obvious delight, suggesting he was somehow complicit in whatever Noah had planned. He tugged at Lily's sleeve, urging her to rise. "There's more?" Lily asked, carefully returning the dress to its box. Noah nodded, his smile broadening. "Get your boots on. We've got somewhere to be." Curiosity piqued, Lily quickly donned her jacket and boots, following Noah and Charlie across the ranch yard toward the main house. Instead of entering through the kitchen as usual, Noah led them around to a side entrance she had rarely used, the door to the music room that had remained closed during their entire stay. "Close your eyes," Noah instructed as they reached the threshold. Lily complied, feeling Charlie's small hand slip into hers as Noah guided them forward. The room smelled of lemon polish and fresh paint, the mustiness that had previously permeated the space notably absent. "Okay," Noah said, his voice vibrating with anticipation. "Open them." Lily blinked, adjusting to the morning light streaming through freshly washed windows. The music room had been transformed. Gone were the dusty sheets and neglected furniture. The hardwood floor gleamed with new polish, the walls freshly painted in a warm honey tone. In the center of the room stood a beautifully restored piano, its wooden surface gleaming with care. But what drew Lily's attention most was the far wall, where Noah had installed floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. And on those shelves, carefully arranged and labeled, stood dozens of volumes. Beekeeping manuals, agricultural references, field guides to flora and fauna of the Rocky Mountains, and children's books that appeared both vintage and new. "Noah," she breathed, turning in a circle to take in the complete transformation. "When did you do all this?" "Been working on it for weeks," he admitted, watching her reaction closely. "Evenings after you and Charlie turned in." Frank helped with the shelving. Margaret tracked down some of the books. Charlie broke free from Lily's hand, rushing to the children's section where he immediately pulled out a colorful volume about butterflies. His expression of delight as he settled cross-legged on the polished floor with his treasure confirmed Noah had chosen perfectly. "The piano was my mother's," Noah explained, running his hand reverently across its surface. "Hasn't been played in years. Had it tuned last week. Thought maybe—" He hesitated, suddenly uncertain. "Thought maybe you might want to learn. Or Charlie might someday. Seems a shame to let it sit silent." Lily moved to the instrument, pressing a key gently to release a clear, perfect note into the room. "It's beautiful," she said, overwhelmed by the thought and care evident in every detail of the surprise. "But why? Why go to all this trouble?" Noah took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. "Because this house has been half empty for too long. Because that cabin was only ever meant to be temporary." He gestured around the rejuvenated room. "Because I hoped, you might consider making this your home. Not as my employee or my friend, but as—" He faltered, the words he'd clearly rehearsed deserting him in the moment. Charlie looked up from his book, watching the adults with intense interest. "As what, Noah?" Lily prompted gently, her heart hammering against her ribs. "As my family," he finished simply, his voice rough with emotion. "If you'll have me. Both of you." The declaration hung in the air between them, momentous yet somehow inevitable, like the final piece of a puzzle falling into place. Lily struggled to find words equal to the moment, to the journey that had brought them to this threshold. "I don't want to replace Dave," Noah continued into her silence, clearly misinterpreting her hesitation. "I know he'll always be Charlie's father, always have a place in your hearts. But I've come to love that boy like he's my own. And you, Lily," his voice broke slightly, "you brought life back to this ranch. To me." Lily moved toward him, closing the distance between them. "Noah Garrett," she said softly, "are you asking me to marry you?" Relief and hope mingled in his expression. "Not doing a very good job of it, am I?" he admitted ruefully. "Should have practiced more." "I think you're doing just fine," Lily assured him, her own voice unsteady with emotion. She turned to Charlie, who had abandoned his book to watch them with intense focus. "What do you think, Charlie? Should we make this our forever home? Should Noah be part of our family?" The question hung in the air, weighted with significance beyond the simple words. Charlie stood slowly, his small face solemn with consideration. He walked to Noah's side, looking up at the tall rancher with an expression of such trust it made Lily's heart ache. Then, deliberately, he reached for Noah's hand and placed it in Lily's, joining them together with the decisive action of someone who had made up his mind long before the question was asked. And then, in the morning light of that rejuvenated room, with autumn sunlight streaming through the windows and the scent of beeswax and lemon polish in the air, Charlie Morgan did something he hadn't done in 18 months, not since the day the telegram arrived announcing his father's death. He spoke. "Yes," he said, the single word emerging slightly raspy from disuse but clear and certain. "Yes." Noah's intake of breath was audible, his eyes widening in astonishment as he looked from Charlie to Lily, who stood frozen in shock at the sound of her son's voice. "Charlie," she whispered, kneeling to his level. "Sweetheart, you spoke." The boy nodded, a smile breaking across his face like sunrise. "I'm ready now," he said, the words coming more easily with practice. "Dad's in heaven, but we're home." He looked up at Noah with absolute certainty. No bees followed. "We can stay." The reference to Noah's words on their first day, "You can stay, if no bees follow," broke the frozen moment, releasing a flood of emotion that had Lily pulling her son into a fierce embrace, tears streaming down her face. When she looked up, she saw moisture in Noah's eyes as well, the stoic rancher undone by the child's simple declaration of trust and belonging. "Well," Noah managed, his voice husky with feeling, "I think that settles it." Lily stood, keeping one arm around Charlie while extending her other hand to Noah. "It does," she agreed. "Yes to all of it. Yes to this being our home. Yes to being a family. Yes to whatever comes next. Yes." Noah gathered them both into his embrace, the three of them standing in a circle of connection that felt both fragile and unbreakable. Charlie wiggled between them, looking up with an expression of mischievous delight that Lily hadn't seen since before Dave's death. "Can we have pancakes now?" he asked, his voice growing stronger with each word. "I'm hungry." The simple request, so normal, so childlike, so wonderfully ordinary, broke the emotional tension, sending both adults into relieved laughter. "Pancakes it is," Noah agreed, ruffling Charlie's hair. "Can't have my family going hungry on a workday. My family." The words settled around Lily's shoulders like a warm blanket, protection against the chill of past losses and future uncertainties. As they moved toward the kitchen, Charlie chattering now with the pent-up words of months, Lily found herself lingering in the doorway of the music room, capturing the moment in memory. "Coming?" Noah asked, noticing her pause. "Just taking it all in," she explained, gesturing to the transformed space. "All of this. Everything that's happened since we showed up at your gate." Noah's expression softened with understanding. "Life has a way of surprising us," he observed, extending his hand to her. "Sometimes for the worse, but sometimes." His gaze traveled to Charlie, now eagerly pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. "Sometimes for the infinitely better." Lily took his offered hand, feeling the strength and gentleness in his calloused fingers. "Thank you," she said softly, "for saying stay that day." "Thank you for being brave enough to come in the first place," he countered. Not everyone would have had that courage. The autumn morning stretched before them, golden with promise and alive with possibility. Outside, the bees would be beginning their day's work, transforming nectar into honey through their ancient alchemy. Inside, in this house that was becoming truly a home, another transformation was taking place, separate lives joining to create something stronger and sweeter than any could have been alone. Charlie's voice called from the kitchen, still wonderfully novel and precious after so long a silence. "Mom, Noah, the batter's ready." "Coming, little bee," Lily called back, the old nickname feeling right again on her tongue. She squeezed Noah's hand. "We shouldn't keep him waiting. He's got a lot of talking to catch up on." The weeks that followed passed in a whirlwind of activity. The news of Charlie's return speech spread through Eden's Creek like wildfire, followed closely by word of Noah and Lily's engagement. Margaret from the general store took particular delight in both developments, happily claiming partial credit for the romance. "Knew it from the first time I saw you together," she declared when they came to town to order wedding invitations. "Two broken people finding each other, better than any novel I've read." Charlie, reveling in his rediscovered voice, became the ranch's unofficial ambassador, chattering to anyone who would listen about the bees, the upcoming wedding, and his role as Noah's best man. The transformation in the boy was remarkable, as if the weight of grief that had sealed his lips had finally lifted, allowing his natural exuberance to resurface. The entire community rallied around the upcoming celebration. Frank offered his meadow by the creek for the ceremony, its location perfect for an October wedding with the aspen trees in full golden glory. Ruby insisted on catering, declaring that, "If I can feed 60 hungry ranchers every morning, I can handle one wedding reception." Even Rebecca Harrington, after an initial frost, thawed enough to offer the use of her family's string quartet for the ceremony. "Least I can do," she told Lily with surprising grace when they encountered each other at the general store. "Noah deserves happiness." Took me too long to realize I wasn't the one who could give it to him. She glanced over to where Charlie was enthusiastically describing a beehive structure to the elderly postmaster. "That boy of yours is something special." "He is," Lily agreed, recognizing the olive branch for what it was. "Thank you, Rebecca, for the quartet and for understanding." The older woman nodded, a rueful smile touching her lips. "Just be good to him. Noah's the best man in this county, maybe in the whole state. He's waited a long time for his family." As preparations for the wedding continued, life at Sunflower Valley settled into new rhythms. Charlie moved his belongings into a room Noah had prepared in the main house. Walls painted sky blue, shelves filled with books, a desk positioned by the window with a perfect view of the apiary. Lily maintained the cabin as her separate space until the wedding, a gesture of respect for tradition that amused Noah but which she felt was important. "Just a few more weeks," she reminded him one evening, as they sat on the porch of the main house, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of purple and gold. Charlie had fallen asleep on the swing beside them, his head resting against Noah's shoulder, one small hand still clutching a notebook filled with his observations of the day's bee activity. "Seems like a technicality at this point," Noah observed, his free arm around Lily's shoulders. "He's already moved in. Ranger's already decided your side of the bed is his favorite spot. Just missing you." Lily leaned into his embrace, savoring the solid warmth of him. "Some things are worth waiting for," she murmured, watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. "Like what you were waiting for when you came here?" Noah asked, the question genuine. "What were you really hoping for that day, Lily, when you arrived with that jar of honey and Charlie in his overalls?" Lily considered the question, thinking back to that desperate morning. "Safety," she admitted. "Shelter. A chance to catch our breath before facing whatever came next." She turned to look at him, the man who had become the center of her world. "I never expected to find love again. Never thought I deserved it after failing with the apiary. Failing to keep Charlie talking. I felt like I'd already used up my allotment of happiness with Dave." "And now?" Noah prompted, his eyes reflecting the last golden light of day. "Now I understand that life isn't about allotments or deserving," Lily replied, her voice strengthening with conviction. "It's about courage. The courage to begin again when everything falls apart. The courage to accept help when pride wants you to struggle alone. The courage to open your heart after it's been broken." Noah nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Takes courage to offer help too," he observed. "To open your door to strangers when you've grown comfortable with your solitude. To risk caring when you know how much it hurts to lose people." The simple truth of his words resonated deeply. They had both taken risks that morning 6 months ago, Lily in her desperate journey to an unknown destination, Noah in his decision to say stay to the widow and child who had appeared at his gate. "We were both braver than we knew," she murmured, watching as Charlie shifted in his sleep, his face peaceful in the gathering twilight. "Still are," Noah agreed, his arm tightening around her shoulders. "Building a life together, blending our stories. That takes a special kind of courage, too." The night deepened around them, stars multiplying across the vast Colorado sky. In the distance, the apiary stood silent. The bees settled for the night in their orderly hives. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Wedding preparations, ranch work, the ongoing process of knitting 3 separate lives into one family tapestry. But tonight, in this moment of quiet connection, everything necessary had already been accomplished. The wedding day dawned clear and crisp, the October sun casting long golden light across the valley. Aspen leaves shimmered, like coins in the gentle breeze, creating a natural cathedral in Frank's meadow where simple wooden chairs had been arranged in a semicircle facing the creek. Noah had risen before dawn, honoring tradition by spending the night in the bunkhouse while Lily returned to the cabin for her final evening as a single woman. Charlie burst into the cabin just after sunrise, his small face alight with excitement. "Mom! The flowers arrived from Mrs. Henderson's greenhouse. And Ruby's already at the main house, setting up food. And Noah can't find his good boots, even though I put them right by the door last night." Lily laughed, catching her son in a hug. "Slow down, little bee. We have hours yet." She studied his animated face, marveling at the transformation from the silent, solemn child who had arrived in spring. "Are you happy about today, Charlie?" "Truly happy." The boy nodded emphatically. "Noah said I get to hold the rings and release the celebration bees, and he promised to teach me to ride the new pony after the honeymoon." His expression turned serious suddenly, a shadow of his older self. "Do you think Dad would be okay with it? With Noah being my new dad, too?" The question, So direct and honest, caught Lily by surprise. She sat on the edge of the bed, drawing Charlie beside her. "What do you think?" she asked gently. "You knew your dad's heart better than anyone." Charlie considered this, his small face thoughtful. "Dad always said we should be happy," he said finally. "When he went away to the war, he made me promise to take care of you and be happy no matter what." A smile broke through his solemnity. "I think he'd like Noah. Noah takes care of us like Dad wanted to." Wisdom from the mouth of a child, Lily thought, blinking back tears. "I think you're right," she agreed, smoothing his already rumpled hair. "Your dad would want us to be happy, to be loved. Noah does that for us." Charlie nodded, satisfied with his answer. "Can I go help Frank set up the chairs now?" he said. "I could test them all to make sure they're steady." "Go ahead," Lily smiled, watching as her son bounded out the door with the endless energy of childhood, Ranger appearing from somewhere to accompany him across the ranch yard. Left alone, Lily moved to the small dresser where her wedding attire waited. The honey-colored dress Noah had given her for her birthday, the delicate bee necklace that had been his mother's, and a crown of autumn wildflowers Margaret had arranged that morning. Simple, meaningful choices that reflected who they were and the life they were building together. As she prepared, Lily found herself thinking of the journey that had brought her to this day. The devastating loss of Dave, the collapse of their apiary, the desperate gamble of coming to Sunflower Valley with nothing but hope and a jar of honey. She thought of Noah's initial wariness, his gradual opening to the possibility of connection, his unfailing gentleness with Charlie even during the long months of silence. Every relationship bore the imprint of what came before it, the joy and the sorrow, the victories and losses that shaped each person. She and Noah both carried scars. Charlie, too, had been marked by grief beyond his years, but together they had discovered that damaged hearts could still love fiercely, that broken paths could lead to unexpected destinations, that courage often looked like simply taking the next step forward when standing still seemed safer. A knock at the cabin door interrupted her reflections. Margaret stood on the threshold, beaming with maternal pride. "Almost time, dear. The guests are arriving, and that handsome groom of yours is pacing like a new father." Charlie's appointed himself official greeter. "That boy's making up for lost talking time, I swear." Lily smiled, smoothing the dress over her hips. "How do I look?" "Radiant," Margaret declared without hesitation, "like a woman who knows exactly where she belongs and is walking toward it with her whole heart." The simple description resonated deeply. That was precisely how Lily felt. Not nervous or uncertain, but absolutely clear about the path she was choosing. This marriage wasn't a desperate grasp at security, or a compromise born of necessity. It was a deliberate union of three hearts that had found in each other exactly what they needed to heal and thrive. The walk to the meadow seemed both eternal and instantaneous. Guests smiled and nodded as Lily passed, their faces kind but somewhat blurred in her focused awareness. All she could truly see was the figure waiting beneath the aspen trees, Noah, strong and steady in his best shirt, his face transformed with joy as she approached. Charlie stood beside him, practically vibrating with excitement in his miniature bolo tie, a small pillow with 2 rings clutched carefully in his hands. And behind them, arranged on stands visible to the gathered community but at a safe distance, were 3 small demonstration hives, their glass sides revealing the industrious workers within. As Lily reached Noah's side, he took her hands in his eyes never leaving her face. "You came back to me," he murmured. The words meant only for her. "Always," she promised, understanding his deeper meaning. Each time they'd been separated, even briefly, her trip into town, his overnight stay with a neighboring rancher during the spring flood, her temporary maintenance of the cabin as separate space, they had returned to each other, strengthening the trust that formed the foundation of their bond. The ceremony itself was beautifully simple. Jim Harrington, in his capacity as county commissioner, officiated with surprising eloquence. "We gather today to celebrate not just the union of 2 people, but the creation of a family," he began, his voice carrying across the meadow. "A family built not from obligation or coincidence of birth, but from choice, courage, and love." Charlie performed his ring-bearing duties with solemn dignity, then joined Lily and Noah for the family vows, a special addition to the ceremony where Noah formally promised to cherish Charlie as his own, and Charlie, in his newly recovered voice, pledged to help take care of the ranch and the bees and each other forever and ever. There wasn't a dry eye in the meadow when the boy concluded by carefully placing his small hand atop Noah and Lily's joined ones. As Jim pronounced them husband and wife, Noah leaned down to whisper in Charlie's ear. The boy's face lit with excitement as he raced to the demonstration hives, carefully removing the travel plugs under Frank's watchful supervision. Released from their temporary confinement, bees streamed forth in a gentle cloud, their buzzing a living music that complemented the quartet's joyful melody. "A blessing from the bees," Noah explained to the delighted guests. "An old tradition from my mother's family. Bees at a wedding ensure sweetness in the marriage." As the celebration continued into the evening, with dancing on the meadow's edge and Ruby's feast laid out on long tables beneath strings of twinkling lights, Lily found a moment of quiet with her new husband. They stood at the edge of the gathering, watching as Charlie taught some of the local children a dance he'd invented, his voice ringing with laughter. "Happy?" Noah asked, his arm secure around her waist. Lily leaned into his embrace, feeling the solid strength of him, the safety she had sought and found. "Completely," she assured him. "Are you?" His answer came not in words, but in the tender kiss he placed on her forehead, in the way his hand found hers and held it with gentle certainty. Some truths were beyond language, expressed instead in the quiet constancy of presence, in the promise of mornings and evenings shared, in the commitment to face whatever came next, not alone, but together. As twilight deepened into night, stars emerging above the mountains like scattered diamond dust, Lily thought again of that desperate dawn when she had arrived at Sunflower Valley Ranch. She had come with a jar of honey and a boy in overalls, with nothing to offer but her determination and skill. Noah had said those words that changed everything. Stay, if no bees follow. No harmful bees had followed from their failed apiary. No disease or bad luck that might have threatened Noah's thriving colonies. But something else had followed, something neither of them could have predicted that first morning. Healing, connection, love that grew stronger with each passing day. Under the vast Colorado sky, surrounded by the community that had become their own, Lily Morgan Garrett felt the final pieces of her heart click into place. The path forward was clear now, illuminated by starlight and shared purpose. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them together. The beekeeper who had arrived with nothing but hope, the rancher who had opened his door to strangers, and the boy whose voice had returned in time to say the most important word of all. Yes. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.